Welcome to the Forward Together webinar series, brought to you by the School of Management at California Lutheran University. The series is designed to bring interesting topics and people to our global community of students, alumni, and leaders in business and government to empower, educate, and inspire. Forward Together features experts from industry with the purpose to spark thought, connect people, and stimulate engaging discussions. Please submit your questions in the chat. We will hold a Q&A immediately following the presentation.
Well, welcome everybody from today again sunny Southern California. My name is Gerhard Apfelthaler. I'm the Dean of the School of Management, and I get to host today's Forward Together webinar. It's a special one today as we have one of our star alumna, Anna Wikland, who is the country director for Google in Sweden, and she's also a member of the executive team for Google Northern Europe. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
So good to see you.
Yeah, very good to see you too.
I know it's late at night right now in Sweden, but how's the weather?
You know what? It's so much snow still. It's very rare that we have snow this late, but it's like it came like 20 centimeters yesterday. So it's white landscape. Yeah.
So spring is a distant fantasy right now.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. But yeah, it's going to be a few more weeks at least.
Okay, well, I wish you good luck with that.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here, Anna, and you and I talked a little before, right? So today we're going to talk more about your journey from Cal Lutheran as an undergrad to becoming the country director of Sweden. We talk about careers, maybe we talk about tech careers. We're not going to discuss Google, right? Maybe we'll talk a little bit about technology in general, but we want to hear more about you. And we have a lot of students and alums on the call also who might want to hear what their journey could look like, right?
Yeah, sure.
So let's start with your life's journey. So you are Swedish, right?
Exactly. I'm Swedish. I'm born and raised in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. I moved from here to the US to start at CLU back when I was 20, and now I'm 41. So it's it's a long time ago now, even though it doesn't feel like that.
Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you hear about us? I mean, Stockholm is not around the corner, right? Or Thousand Oaks.
No, exactly.
How did you hear about us?
Yeah, I heard about it. Well, two ways. A friend of mine actually went there for just a year before me, and then there is this organization, the Sweden America Foundation, that has, or I don't know if they have still, but they had a collaboration with CLU among like 12 other universities across the country, and I knew that I wanted to go to the US. I knew I wanted to go to Southern California, and I wanted to just try to study abroad. I thought for just 1 year, so that was the initial plan, and that's how I picked CLU.
Okay, and then you got stuck here.
Yeah, exactly. I went for a year and then moved back home and started at Stockholm School of Economics, but I missed it too much, so I moved back.
Okay, yeah. So how was your time, right? So now thinking back, that was in the early 2000s that you were here. How was your time here at Cal Lutheran?
Well, I thought it was wonderful. First of all, for me, I went, all by myself. I didn't know anyone, and I remember still, sitting on that plane, 20 years old, having waved goodbye to everyone I knew at home. So that was a bit scary at first, but then it took just a few days, and then I started to make new friends, and my first, was it 2 years, I lived on campus, and it was just such an amazing experience. Everything from like how well greeted I was as an international student to the school. And you know, everyone I met, and just getting to know the American culture and just be on my own, like all of that together was just such an amazing experience, I think.
Right.
And then I think even more so, like what I really appreciated, also comparing to the university at home, which is a big university, I really appreciated the, you know, the familiarity, or like that type of like sentiment that Lutheran has, and that the classes were smaller. So there was a lot of interaction and discussions, and I thought it was interesting that most of my professors I had also had like day jobs on the side. So it was like a super good combination, I think, of theory, and then they came with like practical examples. So it was a lot of really good things, I think.
Yeah. I like how you said they had day jobs on the side, which really suggests that the main focus was teaching, right?
Exactly. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't find the word in English, but you know what I mean, like that they had, of course, both their teaching job, but many of them actually ran businesses on the side,
Right.
at least the ones that I worked with. And also, so after, well, or actually also during my education, like when I got to know like my PR professor, she had her own PR firm down in LA. So I got to have an internship with her, and my marketing professor, he really helped me with my second job after university. Yeah, so those type of connections and the way they worked on, you know, not only at Lutheran, but also in a business on the side.
Well, you'd be happy to hear, right, that despite the fact that we have grown quite a bit, and the campus has changed quite a bit also in the last 20 years, we still maintain that intimate relationship with the educational environment. We try to be very close to our students, to give them the best education, the mentoring that they need. And still, a lot of our professors actually do have those day jobs, right? Along the side, as we value, especially in programs such as business or marketing communications, we value the relationships with industry.
That's great, because it's a real value.
So after graduation, right, you stuck around. You didn't go home to Sweden right away. You gained your first professional experience in a number of companies in the marketing and communication space in LA. Tell us a little bit about those first steps.
Yeah, so exactly. So as an international student, I was allowed to stay first 1 year on my student visa, and could have a job on that visa. So that's what I did. So I found what I thought was my dream job down in Hollywood. It was a small, because my major was in marketing communications, and I found this job in a small event and PR firm focused on the fashion industry, working with international designers that was to enter the US market. So I got my first job there as like an event promoter, working also with PR. But that was a little bit like, I don't know if people have seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, but yeah. So for those who have, I was really that young girl, like super ambitious, and I graduated from Lutheran as summa cum laude with like really good grades and like really good confidence. But I was like, it was really tough. That the owner of that firm wasn't. She wasn't that nice, to say it in a polite way, and I didn't really get to do any of those tasks. And actually, thanks to both my professor, Mr. Ludado, from my marketing classes, but also the CEO of the last internship I had, which was also through Lutheran. I was still in contact with them I talked a lot to them, and they were like, "You can't stay there. Like that's not good for you." So then they helped connect me with another firm up in Woodland Hills that was within the healthcare industry. So it was a consultancy firm called Health Benchmarks, and back then, what had just happened was that they had started to create pay for performance programs for doctors to measure how well they were doing their jobs. So this consultancy firm developed those type benchmark metrics that the different like insurance companies could use. Mm-hmm. So then I was hired as the sales and marketing manager there, and by that time I had to apply for a working visa. So they helped me with that process. So then I worked there for a bit more than a year. Like super great experience. I had a really good manager that more like helped me, get into like a first job in the right way. I got to travel a lot in the US, like to different fairs, and were the ones like really marketing this company and brought in some sales. It was just such a good experience.
Nice.
Yeah. So those were my first jobs.
It's always about leaders who are capable of mentoring, right? The next generation.
Yeah, exactly. And then after those first like 2 years, I came to like a point where I also started to like, debate whether or not I was gonna, just stay permanently in the US or move back to Sweden. It was in one of those, like sliding door moments in life where I felt that I wanted to try to live in Sweden again to see if I liked it. I wasn't sure at all. So I had an agreement with the CEO of this company where, he said, go home and try it. And if you don't like it, you'll have your job back, basically. So it was very nice of him. And that also made it easier for me to make the decision to move back home.
Mm-hmm. Can we back up for a moment? So between the first job that wasn't so great and then a second job, so you were hired as a marketing manager for the second job. That must have been a big jump in responsibility. And so how did you handle that, right? You were still a rather fresh graduate, given a lot of responsibility, probably big goals to achieve. How did you feel about that at that time?
I think at first I was a bit intimidated, but that was mostly because also of the like really tough like 8 months at the firm I had before. But then like back to the importance of a good leader, like the manager I had, she was really good, and her and I together like structured, because they hadn't had this role before, so this was new to them. So her and I together like made a good plan and structured like which tasks I was gonna start focusing on and do. And manager in that sense, I didn't have anyone like other than me. So it wasn't that I had anyone report to me. So it was about me doing this job and like do it well. But it was a lot of fun, and I think just by the friendly atmosphere that was in this small like firm, made it just like a really good experience. And then I think also like my personality and like just loving meeting people and the way that worked when I was traveling around and promoting health benchmarks at these different conferences and fairs, it worked out really well. So then I got some super valuable connections for them, and through that we closed some big deals, and then of course that gives you confidence. So then it just kept going in a good direction.
Right. So I just wanted to mention to the audience, right, a number of questions are coming in, and sometimes we'll just integrate them in the conversation, but we'll also leave some time at the end of our talk to address some of the questions at least.
Absolutely.
So coming back to that move back to Sweden, right? So you had been in California for a number of years, and you weren't sure about moving back to Sweden. How was that? Was that a difficult experience? Were you a different person coming back to Sweden? And did that make it harder?
Yeah, no, it was, I think I had absolutely like changed, I think I think one of the things I loved the most, I think, about the US is, and California perhaps, is like the openness to new people, and the natural thing about like greeting each other and like talking to each other, and also I think to some extent also learn how to, promote yourself, like believe in yourself, in a way that you don't do that at the same to the same extent in Sweden. So that was really good, and also just the whole thing about having worked and studied and lived in the US for 5 years had also helped me a lot, feeling very confident in speaking English. So that also helped a lot. No, it turned out to be really exciting to move back home, and I had a few different like job offers, but I had two that I really chose between. One of them was to become like the PR manager for Red Bull in Sweden, and the other was to become the sales manager of a startup within more of the digital industry, a startup that was going to become like a search advertising agency. Google had just launched in Sweden at this point in time, so everything was really new. And I remember like really debating this, because on the one hand, Red Bull's at least in Sweden, like a super hip brand, like super cool company. Pretty cool to get that job offer being that young, like the pay was really good. So it was a lot of those things that really like talked towards that decision. But then with Keybroker, which was the name of the other firm, I spoke with their founders. They had just founded Keybroker, like it was like a month and a half before this. So it was a startup. But they talked about the vision and what they wanted to build up, like a European company, and like it sounded really exciting. And I had worked a bit and used Google in the US. I knew more of it than most Swedes at this point in time. So, and then I had a really good, like one of my dad's best friends was also my mentor, like a super successful, like serial entrepreneur. So we talked a lot, and he was like, okay, but what does your gut tell you? Like, what do you feel like doing? And I was like, I really think I want to go with Keybroker. And he's like, you know what? Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? That it doesn't work out. You'll learn so much from it.
Right.
And it was also a lot less pay, but I wasn't driven by that. I was driven more about the excitement and being young and just wanting to do fun things.
Yeah.
So I went for that. And
do you think, Anna? Do you think that the fact that you went for the less safe, the less paid, but more exciting opportunity, that this had something to do with your time in California?
Yeah, it could be that, in combination with just like my personality about like curious and not afraid of take risk, and just eager to learn, I think. And to me, I think that was like another sliding door moment, but one that has really defined then the path forward, and also has just been such fun journey ever since. So happy that I made that decision.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you a little bit more about that transition back to Sweden, right? There's this old saying that you can never come back home because you have changed and everybody else and everything else is still the same back home. And sometimes when you talk to people, then they look at you in astonishment that how you're so different. Have you had some kind of experiences like that?
Yeah, it was like that in the beginning. I think quite a lot, because I had experienced so much and I had grown so much, and uh, um, I could absolutely feel that. But it was also, a really great time in life. I think it would have been different if I would have gone back to, the same school or try to do the same thing as I had done before moving to California. But since it was also like a totally new situation, it was the first time that I lived away from home. I had my small little apartment at the very center of Stockholm, and I had this new job and got to learn a lot of new people. I adjusted pretty fast, I think, and just enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. So at the time when you came on board with Keybroker, you mentioned it was just the time when Google also started in Sweden, right? It was sort of the emergence of the digital age, particularly marketing and advertising. Can you talk a little bit about that exciting time, that explosive growth that the whole industry went through?
Yeah, it was absolutely like that, and I remember my dad has been in marketing and sales his whole career basically, and then when I accepted the role in Keybroker, it was also as a sales manager, which was kind of funny because I hadn't at all thought about going into sales. I was much more like focused on going into PR and communications. So then when I was hired, it was about me being responsible for bringing in customers and setting like a pricing strategy and like a pitch deck and all of this. And I had never worked in sales, so I remember like walking, like I had this round that took like an hour. I walked that round so many times and like thought that this is never going to work. But then piece by piece it was I started to get a grip of it, and since Google was so new in Sweden, like most marketing directors who were the key influencers for me didn't really know what it was. So I could practice my pitch decks on my dad, because if he didn't understand, they wouldn't. And then, eventually we started to get companies on board, and we started to really understand like how efficient Google and search advertising was for their business, and the measurability that you could provide them to really show like their returns on their investments. And it was really fun to be part of it that early. And then eventually Facebook launched, so then we broadened the offer to also like be really good in Facebook advertising, to have the combination, and it was fun to be part of it there early on, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Do you see some degree of analogy from the early days of SEM and SEO and then social media to what's going on now with AI? There is an awful lot of chatter about it. Is this a similar development?
Yeah, I think so. I think there have been these different like moments, as you mentioned, like with when this type of like digital marketing started. That was like a big thing. Well, first the internet, and then the digital marketing, and then the whole thing when the iPhone came with mobile and the importance of mobile, and now we are at another of those, well, probably even bigger shifts, both with AI and now all the talk about generative AI and everything that can do. So it's absolutely one of those next pivotal moments, I would say.
Yeah. So then let's go back. So you stayed at Keybroker for a while. You were quite successful at your job. You ended up in a very high level position, right? At
yeah, exactly. No, it went well. So we became like Google's biggest partner in Sweden. And then I went on my first parental leave. In Sweden, we have like very long parental leaves. We can be home for a year per child. So I was home a year. And then when I came back, I was offered to take over as the CEO of Keybroker, which I did. So, and then I had that position for about a year. And then I was actually at like a Google conference in London and met with my current boss, who at that time was a Nordic director for Google. And then there was a position that I had opened as, it's called industry leader, but it's basically like sales leader for retail and technology for the ads business. So I was offered that position, and it was good timing. I had been with Keybroker for 7 years and felt like wanting to move on. So then I jumped on that, and that's when I joined Google back in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Again, an interesting move, right? There you are running a company, the biggest partner in the advertising space for Google in Sweden. You're in charge, you're calling the shots, and then all of a sudden you go to a multinational company, right, where you have to fit into an organizational structure. Was that a big change for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that was a big change. I think that I mean, I love working in Google. I've been here for 9 years now, but one thing that I can miss sometimes still is that, you know, that feeling and that mentality of being in a small startup. It's really tough, and many times you really, you know that you need to like get that deal in, or you need to do this or that, otherwise it's not really going to work out. And those type of situations are fun, but then there are so many other exciting things being part of a big company. But that transition, yeah, it was special. It was very different for me.
I can only imagine that this was an adjustment. Now, Anna, you have to explain to us, so what does a country director at Sweden do? What does your workday look like, your work week? What kind of responsibilities do you cover?
Yeah. It's a very broad role. So as a country director, there are 3 areas that I focus my time on. And also, like, since Google is such a big company, we have this big matrix organization, meaning that it's not everyone employed in Sweden that report directly to me. There are a lot of different like dotted lines with people reporting into their line managers in different functions, but then I'm still like responsible for everything overall, where people report to me. But in Sweden, we are a bit more than 450 people, and half of them are in engineering. So Google Meet, the competitor to Zoom, is being developed globally from Sweden. Now we have 2 more offices globally that also develop Meet, but from the start it was from Sweden. Because we acquired some companies way back and wanting to keep talent. And then the other 50% is primarily within the business side on ads and on cloud sales. So a third of my role is still very much connected to especially the ads business, where I'm responsible for the revenues for that. And within that, that's also where I'm very connected to both the Northern Europe management team, and also work a lot with some EMEA teams. So I'm responsible for some things for Northern Europe, working in EMEA too. And then one part is everything, like to connect the dots and really take care of everything that is for Google Sweden, with the office, with all the different teams, making sure that we have a business plan across all different teams that work well in Sweden, like all the duties we as an employer have in Sweden, all of that. And then the third area is very much connected to the brand and reputation of Google Sweden in Sweden. So to really make sure that we do a lot of efforts to show that we are not just this huge American company, but also the subsidiary Google Sweden do care about Sweden and everything that we want to, do to contribute locally. So there it's a lot about meeting politicians, doing a lot of external media interviews, participate at events, and those type of things.
Yeah. Just out of interest, are you all back? Are all employees back to the office? Are you hybrid? Are you remote?
Yeah, no, we are hybrid. So we are 3-2, so 3 in the office, 2 optional. And we even have days. So Tuesday through Thursday are days that we want everyone to be in, because we've noticed the importance of having the same days to really get, the energy and the collaboration and that amazing office buzz going in a good way. And then there are some engineers that have been, able to apply to work fully remote. But it's not that many that have chosen to do so. Many really appreciate coming to the office. So, but that's a bit different across the world, because that depends also on, commute times and other things too. But in Sweden, people appreciate coming in.
Oh, that's good to hear. So I'd like to start closing the loop a little bit with where we started with education before I get to the questions that we have from the audience. I think it's maybe more a US thing than a European thing, but in recent years, we've heard a lot of criticism about college education. Is it still worth it? Do you need a job? Do you need a college degree to get a job in the tech sector? What's your thinking about that?
I think it's still really valuable and super important. And I think the combination of, what you learn, in the literature and so in the different courses, but it's as much about the interactions with the professors and having those type dialogues and the way those dialogues and examples and experience really add to what you learn. So I think it's still super relevant for sure.
And there's probably things that you learn at college, but not in a classroom, right? You mentioned the importance of your professors who opened the networks, who were there as mentors.
I think that the biggest difference is rather, I think that nowadays you can't really just pick one education or one profession and then you think that's what you're going to do for the next 40 years, but rather understand that you need your college degree as a base, but then being much more open to lifelong learning to really continue to stay relevant, since everything is changing so fast.
Yeah. Which I hope also endorses the liberal arts model that Cal Lutheran practices, right? Where we give you a strong foundation in some of the core skills, very broad insight into many different areas before you specialize in a major. That increases the versatility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go to some of the questions. So here I have a question from Yanis, who is a fellow alum. Similar story. He is actually from France and is now very successful in what he does. And he asks, in your experience, what are the biggest cultural differences between working for a startup in the EU versus in the US? And what should European founders know about launching a business in the United States?
Yeah. I think, well, in Europe, I have mostly experienced them from Swedish startups. But I think, and the ones I work with are pretty good too. Otherwise, I would say that I think that US startups are probably like even better at like raising capital and knowing like how to really like in a good way pitch for to get investments and so. But I think we're starting to get a lot better at that also in Europe and in Sweden. We have now grown several unicorns, and I think we are like after Silicon Valley, we have the most like startups per capita or something. Like there's a lot of innovation going on. Yeah, so I don't really. I feel it's not that good of an answer, but I haven't really noticed that much more difference. Or maybe I haven't worked with that many startups from the US actually, more connected to Google and other bigger companies.
Yeah. But I can see that, right? That startup culture itself is more like a global or globally homogeneous culture where maybe Europe has imported quite a few traits from the United States, and that's why we have such high similarities. But you're definitely right? The startup environment, the ecosystem in many European countries wasn't as strong 10 years ago as it's now. There has been
exactly. It's a big difference. Yeah.
So we have a question just out of interest from Terry Kelman here. What is the cost of college in Sweden compared to the US?
Way less, or if not, it's not free, but it's the actual education is pretty much free if you don't decide to do something very special. But most university degrees are free, so then you take student loans more, if you don't work on the side to just pay for cost of living during those years when you study. So it's tax based here in a way that it's not in US.
Right. So the cost of education is pretty much the same probably between Sweden and the US. It's just that the tab is picked up by either the government in Sweden, right, or the individual in the US.
Yeah.
Terry actually also had a little comment on the question about startups, right? She says, well, you might think about leaving your developers in Europe, but having your marketing and sales in the United States. Is there something to that argument that you could see, that you could endorse?
If it is a European startup, is that what?
I think the point here is, right, that Americans are really good at marketing and sales, but maybe Europeans are better at other things such as technology, engineering.
Well, marketing and sales, I think it depends on where the company wants to market to. Because I think if you're selling towards a European audience or different countries within Europe, then I think you still need your sales force close to the customers. And on the marketing side, probably quite similar. Like you still need to be close to where the customers are rather than having it too far out.
Right. So I'm not sure if you can see the questions yourself, Anna, the way I can see them, but Google is getting a lot of praise here for different products.
Okay, great.
Oh, yeah, people like Google Meet, and one of my colleagues here, Professor Earl Charles, actually is amazed by the fact that Google Meet is free as opposed to other platforms. Is it gonna stay that way?
It's not free for everyone. It's different for like different companies or universities and such. I don't know what the future plans are actually, but it's been fascinating to follow because when the pandemic hit and we started to get information, I started to get information about Google planning for all of us to start working from home. I talked to the engineering director saying like, do you want to do a few test rounds? Because apparently we're going to start working from home. So they did some test runs and then realized that, yeah, but this will probably work besides a few testers who have their equipment in the office. And then to see during this, crazy time where so many more became, digital, to see the number of like users that we got, it was like a real hockey stick. I think we had at the most like 3 million new users per day. And for that team, to be able to both develop, to just keep capacity working, and at the same time develop like great functionality. And actually, Italy was one of the first schools where that closed down due to COVID, and there we offered Meet them for free for all schools, and the students pretty soon found out how they could just mute them and throw out the teachers from the classes. So then that was one of the first examples of like how the teams needed to really also fast develop new features that needed to work during that time. So it was just so many great examples to follow.
Yeah, I think we've all seen those changes on whatever platform you were using, right? In almost real time, right? One day you're having one version of the platform, the next day there's a new functionality on there. It was an interesting.
Exactly. Now really fast change.
Yeah. I want to take one final question, and I hope I'm interpreting it right. So Irfan Khan here asks about metrics for your office, how you manage, how you measure. So are you very, very goal and metrics driven, or is it more relationship oriented? So how do you personally manage your team?
Yeah, it's different for different teams, I would say. So if this is more like connected to like performance, it's for the sales teams, it's a lot about both, how performance versus the target set, how that's being delivered on, as well as how we develop relationships with customers and other things. For my team working more on the brand and reputation side of things, it can be more in terms of like how we measure how we, the brand advocacy in the market, and how we're seen based on some different studies. And so it depends on which team we're on. But then more internally, we have this company survey every year. It's called Google Geist. It's a global survey that we do, but then that is broken down on country level and functional level and such, where we also really analyze and take all the input and answers we get very seriously to see like where things work out well and where we need to potentially change things to make sure that we keep being a good employer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, well, Anna, my last question would be for all of those who are still on the call and who are maybe still pursuing their college education, any recommendations for them, any good advice that you would give to somebody who is looking to graduate maybe in the next year or two? Any career or life advice?
Yeah. First of all, like good choice of school, I think. It's been great for me, and like the Cal Lutheran has a special place in my heart. I think in terms of career advice, I think first of all, like really go for something that you think is fun and that you will enjoy doing. And then while choosing where, I think it's as much about you choosing them and the manager that you're gonna have as they choose you. Mm-hmm. So also be a bit demanding or really think that through. I think is also like something important, because it's important to enjoy the place where you go every day and really feel that you can develop and have someone that supports you on your journey, especially in the beginning.
Perfect words at the end of our webinar, Anna. It's getting late on your end, so We won't take too much more of your time. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us and answering my questions and the questions of the audience. It was wonderful to see you. And please, next time you visit the mothership in the Silicon Valley, stop by.
I will for sure come by. Absolutely. And thanks for having me. Really good to talk to you.
Thank you,
thanks
Anna.
for listening.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to our audience as well. You are right now seeing a slide with some of our upcoming events. I particularly want to encourage everybody to participate in our annual 24-hour day of fundraising, Cal Lutheran Cares Day. We have a DEIJ in the Workplace event coming up on April 18th. Our annual Principles of Responsible Management Education competition. The voting starts on April 18. We have our culminating event on the 26th. And then the biggest new venture fair we've ever had on May 3rd. We have currently 76 teams signed up, 76 startups right here on campus. And for all of you who will be graduating, join us for our graduation banquet on May 12th. And one thing that's not on here, if you are in Thousand Oaks, if you are on campus or close to campus, tomorrow, 11:30 in Bruce Brandt Forum, our Center for Economic Research and Forecasting is going to present their work on the Latino GDP. So stop by if you can. And thank you very much. See you at the next event.
We thank you for participating in today's Forward Together webinar series, brought to you by the School of Management at California Lutheran University. The School of Management offers a broad range of programs and community services. Whether you're looking to upgrade your career, locate current economic data from our Center for Economic Research and Forecasting, or a place to start and grow your business at Hub 101, our community startup space, we invite you to visit us at clu.edu/SOM and join the community as we move forward together.